around the world, joined in a common purpose to remake the planet into a haven of joy and understanding and goodness. No one should have to suffer, especially our children.
Over the years, the Super Bowl halftime show has stopped being just a break. It's turned into a global phenomenon. It's so massive that sometimes it even steals the spotlight from the actual NFL game. From legends like Madonna and Stevie Wonder to icons like Katy Perry, Justin Timberlake, and Lady Gaga, the list of stars who've owned that stage just keeps growing. But there's one name that overshadows them all: Michael Jackson. When Michael stepped onto that stage, it wasn't just a concert. It was a turning point in entertainment history. He didn't come to perform, he came to make time stop. That show didn't just break records, it set a whole new standard for what a live performance could be. People still remember it with chills. It was that powerful. Decades have passed, and sure, we've seen wild lights, insane effects, and next-level tech, but Michael's show, it still sits untouched at the top. Every artist that follows is chasing that same spark, but none have caught it yet. Because what Michael created wasn't just pop, it was legend. His show hit something deeper, something emotional that stuck with people around the world. So what was his secret? What made that performance impossible to outshine?
Come on, Michael, do it, baby. Come on, Michael. Take 5. Come on, Michael, do it.
Before we jump in, hey, make sure to drop a like and hit that bell so you don't miss any of these deep dives. That simple click helps keep this content alive. Alright, let's get into it. Back in the early days of the Super Bowl, the halftime show wasn't the massive spectacle we know today. It was just a side act. For decades, it was handled mostly by local marching bands, and sometimes even turned into a little promo event for Disney projects. Still, it slowly became one of the most watched moments in American sports TV, especially between the mid-70s and mid-80s. But that started to change near the end of that decade. Ratings began to drop hard, and the wake-up call hit big during one particular Super Bowl. That year, the NFL went with a Winter Wonderland theme because the Winter Olympics were happening in the US, so they packed the stage with nearly 1,000 performers, dancers, skaters, you name it. They even brought in the amazing Gloria Estefan for a special appearance. Sounds epic, right? Well, not really. The show ended up being chaotic. Too many people, too much going on, and no real direction. The audience wasn't feeling it at all. People literally called it boring. And while CBS was airing that mess, the FOX network saw an opening and aired a live comedy special from In Living Color, where they mocked the Super Bowl halftime show right as it was happening. That parody pulled viewers away fast. The NFL actually lost a big chunk of its audience during halftime. It was a total embarrassment for the network. That moment hit the NFL like a slap in the face. They realized the halftime show could no longer be treated as a filler segment. It had to become a major attraction, something powerful enough to pull in millions of viewers. And although some earlier Super Bowls had already featured big pop names like New Kids on the Block or the legendary Whitney Houston, this was the turning point. The moment the NFL knew they had to completely reinvent the halftime show. The one who sang the US national anthem that year didn't really leave an impact. The performances just felt flat, predictable, and honestly kind of dull. Fans watching the game weren't impressed, and the NFL knew it. So when planning the next Super Bowl, the production team behind the halftime show decided it was time to shake things up. Big time. They wanted a performance that would blow people's minds. More than that, they needed a superstar, someone who could pull millions of eyes to the screen instantly. And that's when one name came to mind: Michael Jackson. By then, Michael had already solidified himself as the undisputed king of pop. His latest album had crushed charts worldwide, and even though the early 90s brought controversy about his looks and constant media attention, his fame was still unmatched. Nobody could command a crowd like Michael. His global reach was so massive that when HBO paid a whopping $20 million to air one of his live concerts in Bucharest, it became the highest-rated cable broadcast in history. And that's exactly the kind of magic the NFL needed to save their halftime show. By the end of 1992, the league finally reached out to Michael with a huge invitation. But there was a catch. Michael had no idea what the Super Bowl even was. He wasn't into sports, didn't follow any teams, and didn't care about football at all. Still, it had been years since he'd done a major televised performance. Not since his iconic Motown 25 moment or his legendary 1988 Grammys performance. So the idea of reaching a fresh, massive audience definitely sparked his interest. But there was drama right from the start. His manager at the time, Sandy Gallen, actually turned down the NFL's offer 3 times. Why? Because the NFL had a strict rule. They don't pay performers. Artists had to perform for free. And to make things worse, they didn't want to give Michael creative control either. They wanted to keep things traditional, the same predictable setup from previous years, only with Michael Jackson added to the mix like a trophy. That didn't sit well with him at all. Michael wanted to create an experience, not just another halftime show, and the idea of giving up his vision for something basic, that was never his style. Michael wasn't easy to convince, not at all. At that moment, he was in the middle of his legendary Dangerous tour, performing in sold-out stadiums all over the world. His show was on another level, futuristic, sharp, and ahead of every music standard at the time. So when the NFL came knocking, he wasn't interested in squeezing into their old-school halftime format. He wanted to do something no one had ever seen on TV before, something epic. Michael's vision was bold. He wanted the Super Bowl performance to feel like a mini concert, not a halftime filler. To make that happen, he demanded full creative control. He wanted to be named co-producer of the show so he could design every move, every beat, every second exactly how he wanted it.
We must join together to make this world a better place for each of them. Heal LA is only our first step in making things better.
And he had another big request. He wanted more than 3,500 fans surrounding the stage to create the illusion of a full-blown concert crowd. He didn't want the show to just look big, he wanted people to feel it. But the most important piece of all? The songs. Michael wanted to send a message, not just entertain. While producers pushed for his biggest hits, he wanted something deeper. He wanted songs from Dangerous that carried a global message of unity and healing. Producers, of course, begged for classics like Billie Jean, and Michael wasn't having it. He even told them that Billie Jean is just a melody. It doesn't mean anything. His focus was on Heal the World, a song that carried his true purpose. But since Billie Jean was his most famous hit and the NFL knew the audience expected it, they eventually found a compromise. The final plan? A powerful opening that would blow everyone's minds, followed by Billie Jean to bring that signature groove. Then he'd switch the mood with Black or White, spreading a message of unity, and close with We Are the World, leading straight into the emotional performance of Heal the World. Before that last song, Michael would deliver a short but moving speech, a message straight from his heart, before finishing the show with an unforgettable global anthem. But of course, not every demand made it through. One of Michael's most unusual requests was to delay the Super Bowl by 3 hours, so his halftime performance could happen in total darkness, the way he usually performed on tour. The NFL shut that idea down fast. Doing that would have meant airing the game too late for East Coast cities like New York, risking ratings and upsetting sponsors. After a series of tense back-and-forth negotiations, with both sides rejecting each other's terms again and again, they finally reached a deal. Michael wouldn't get paid a cent for his performance, but the NFL agreed to make a $100,000 donation to his Heal the World Foundation, which at that time was helping victims of the Los Angeles riots. That gesture sealed the deal and marked the beginning of one of the most iconic halftime shows in history. After weeks of talks and negotiations, Michael finally signed with the NFL to perform the Super Bowl 27 halftime show in Pasadena, California on January 31st, 1993. In the weeks leading up to the big day, Michael, his band, and his dancers locked themselves inside a massive tent in the Rose Bowl parking lot, the same place where the game would happen. Every single day, they rehearsed nonstop, perfecting every movement and every beat. Michael's obsession with perfection was next level. He would repeat the same choreography 14 to 16 times a day until it looked flawless. According to guitarist Jennifer Batten, this might have been the first and only time in his entire career that the king of pop actually felt nervous before a show. Michael had always said the stage was his home, the only place where he truly felt safe. But this time, things were different. He knew millions would be watching live, and if even one thing went wrong, it would be captured forever on television. The pressure was enormous, and he refused to let anything fail. Then, just days before the show, Michael made a last-minute request, one that would become legendary. He told the producers, "Don't start the music until I give the signal." His signal? He'd lift his hands and take off his sunglasses. Nobody on the production team realized what he was planning, but Michael was about to create a moment of unreal suspense, something television had never seen before. Finally, the big day arrived. January 31st, Dallas Cowboys versus Buffalo Bills. The Rose Bowl was packed, and the energy was electric. Everyone knew Michael was performing at halftime, and the excitement was through the roof. Every commercial break, the announcers reminded the audience, "Stay tuned, Michael Jackson is next." But no one had a clue what was about to happen. Because what Michael was about to do wouldn't just steal the spotlight, it would change television history forever. As halftime began, the stadium screens flickered. The illusion was on. A video appeared showing Michael's silhouette. Then, suddenly, a double of him appeared standing on top of one of the giant screens, as if he had magically teleported there. The crowd went wild. But before they could even process it, another Michael appeared on the opposite side of the stadium. Two Michaels, both standing still, both larger than life, staring down at the audience. The confusion was instant, but the excitement? Off the charts. Fans screamed, unsure which one was real, as the illusion of teleportation made it seem like Michael Jackson was everywhere at once. And just like that, before even a single note played, Michael had already turned a simple halftime show into a worldwide spectacle of mystery, illusion, and magic. And then, boom! Without warning, Michael Jackson exploded onto the stage right in the center of the stadium. The crowd went insane, but what came next was pure shock. Not a single sound, not a single move. For over a minute and a half, one of the longest silences in live TV history filled the air. Michael stood there, frozen in his iconic military-style jacket, staring straight ahead. No dancing, no singing, no movement, nothing. The world just stopped. What looked simple was actually genius. That silence wasn't an accident. It was control at its finest. The crowd screamed louder with every passing second, even though Michael didn't move a single finger. It was a masterclass in stage power, something only he could pull off. People at home were glued to their screens, completely hypnotized. Even the NFL producers were panicking. Every second on air cost thousands of dollars, and Michael was standing still, saying nothing, breaking every rule of live television. The control room was chaos, people shouting, counting seconds, sweating bullets. But Michael, calm, unbothered, in total command. He held that silence for a total of 95 seconds, turning it into one of the most legendary moments of his entire career. Over 130 million viewers watched in awe as he transformed stillness into pure spectacle. That silence became his roar, a statement of dominance that left everyone breathless. Then suddenly, he lifted his hands. The crowd erupted. A searing guitar solo ripped through the stadium. The opening of Jam. The energy flipped from dead still to explosive in an instant. The stage came alive with flashing lights, roaring pyrotechnics, and that industrial, hard-hitting choreography only Michael could deliver. It wasn't your typical family-friendly halftime routine. It was raw, sharp, and aggressive. After the long silence, the impact hit 10 times harder. The audience lost it completely. People were jumping, screaming, losing their minds. Then, in a flawless transition, the beat dropped into Billie Jean, a song that needed no introduction. The stadium nearly erupted. Originally, Michael hadn't even wanted to perform it, but when he did, he turned it into pure art. Every move precise, every spin perfect, every beat hitting exactly where it should. Just one tilt of his hat or a smooth hee-hee sent waves through the crowd. His timing was surgical. Nothing extra, nothing wasted. It wasn't just a performance. It was proof that Michael Jackson owned the stage, the show, and the moment, completely. Right after Billie Jean, the tone shifted. The beat dropped, and Black or White began. This was the moment when the message behind Michael's performance started to shine through loud and clear. That song wasn't just another hit. It was an anthem against racism and division. The crowd went wild as Michael danced across the stage, but this time it wasn't just about his moves or his energy. It was about something bigger. The screens filled with bold images of unity, and when those giant panels rose showing hands of different colors interlocked, everyone understood. This was about one world, one people. The Super Bowl had never seen anything like it. Michael had turned a halftime show into a social statement, a call for equality, peace, and togetherness broadcast to hundreds of millions around the globe. It wasn't just entertainment anymore. It was history in motion. Then, a beautiful surprise. The announcers revealed that children from Los Angeles had drawn pictures for the children of the world. Suddenly, as if by magic, Michael was handed a sparkling wand. He lifted it gently, and across the entire stadium, thousands of colorful banners began to rise, each one showing a child's drawing. The crowd gasped as the field transformed into a massive mural of hope. That's when the voices of 3,000 local children filled the air, singing, "We Are the World." It was pure emotion, a legendary moment of innocence and unity. Michael stood surrounded by their voices, his presence humble yet powerful, using his biggest stage to share a message the world needed to hear. And then came the grand finale. Heal the World, a deliberate and deeply moving choice. This wasn't about hype anymore, it was about healing. With the memory of the Los Angeles riots still fresh, Michael used this moment to speak directly to humanity. The stage filled with children waving flags from every country, forming a giant symbol of peace. The energy changed. It wasn't wild or chaotic, it was calm, emotional, and full of purpose. Michael wasn't performing for fame, he was performing for the planet. He wanted the world to stop, feel, and remember that love and unity could still exist. Those final moments, his voice soaring, surrounded by a sea of color and light, left millions speechless. When the music ended, the stadium erupted into applause that seemed to go on forever. And for the first time in history, the Super Bowl wasn't about football anymore. The game continued, and yes, the Dallas Cowboys crushed the Buffalo Bills. But nobody was talking about touchdowns. Everyone was talking about Michael Jackson's halftime show. It became clear that day, the King of Pop hadn't just performed. He had changed the rules of the game forever. That night made history. For the first time ever, the halftime show outperformed the game itself. Michael Jackson's performance didn't just draw a crowd, it broke every record in television history. Over 133 million people watched in the United States alone, and worldwide estimates reached more than 1 billion viewers. The world stopped to watch the King of Pop take over the Super Bowl. It wasn't just a win for the NFL, it was a masterpiece for Michael too. Since his iconic Motown 25 moment, he hadn't delivered a performance that shook the world quite like this one. The media went wild, calling it one of the greatest live performances in television history. Every headline had his name on it. Every network replayed the show over and over. In the days that followed, Michael's fame skyrocketed once again. Sales of his Dangerous album shot up to new heights, his face dominated the news, and his halftime show became the global talking point. It was clear what he had done that night wasn't just a concert, it was a cultural earthquake. But behind the record numbers and all the glory, something even bigger had happened. That performance had rewritten the rulebook for entertainment. The NFL finally understood that the halftime show wasn't just an intermission, it was the main event. Michael's creativity, his precision, and his vision turned the Super Bowl into something no one had ever imagined, a worldwide entertainment platform. From that moment on, the halftime show became the most anticipated performance of the year, a stage for the greatest artists in the world to prove themselves before millions. And indeed, since that night, we've seen unforgettable shows. Prince, Beyoncé, Shakira, and J.Lo, The Weeknd, Rihanna, and so many more, all pushing boundaries with massive production, insane visuals, and next-level technology. The Super Bowl became the home of spectacle, and that evolution started with Michael Jackson. But here's the thing, even after more than 30 editions, even after all those groundbreaking performances, there's still one show everyone keeps going back to. Every single year, when halftime comes around, people compare it to that moment in Pasadena, Michael Jackson's halftime show. And it makes you wonder, why? Why do we still talk about that performance decades later when today's shows are bigger, louder, and more advanced than ever? Because what Michael did wasn't just about sound or lights. It was spirit. It was about connection, unity, and a presence that no camera or special effect could ever replace. That's what made his halftime show eternal. No matter how much technology evolves or how spectacular future performances become, the bar was set that night in 1993, and the world has been trying to reach it ever since. At this point, let's get something straight. If you prefer another artist's halftime show, that's totally fine. Everyone's got their own taste, and honestly, there have been some truly incredible performances since then. This video isn't about forcing the idea that Michael Jackson's halftime show has to be the best one ever, because let's be real, in terms of musical production, stage design, technology, and budget, today's artists have pushed things to levels that didn't even exist back then. There's no denying that many performers after Michael have done things he simply couldn't have. Not because of talent, but because of the technical limits of his era. Still, no matter how much time passes, people keep going back to that moment, to that one Super Bowl performance that changed everything. So why does Michael Jackson's halftime show still sit at the top? The answer is actually simple. He revolutionized the entire concept of performing, just like when he stunned the world with the moonwalk on live TV, or when he turned Thriller into a short film that changed music videos forever. Michael didn't just perform at the Super Bowl. He reinvented it. Before him, halftime shows were filler segments, something to kill time between the game. But what Michael did that night transformed it into a global event. He He turned a sports break into a worldwide concert, mixing power, silence, emotion, and meaning in ways no one had ever seen before. From that long, suspenseful entrance where he stood frozen for nearly 2 minutes, to the concert-style flow of the songs, to the record-breaking TV ratings, every detail was something new. Every move was a statement. And more than anything else, Michael used that stage to send a message of unity and peace through music. Millions of people around the planet heard it, felt it, and believed in it, if only for a moment. That kind of magic doesn't fade. Michael didn't come to improve what already existed. He came to invent something new, a new way to see halftime, a new way to use music as connection, a new way to move the world. That's the real difference. And that's why his show remains untouchable. Every artist who steps onto that stage now walks the path he built. Every firework, every dance move, every emotional moment we see today traces back to his vision. Because at the end of the day, Michael Jackson wasn't just a performer, he was a creator of moments that changed culture forever. The man didn't just have talent. He had the power to shape how the entire world experiences music. And that's why, no matter how big or flashy the Super Bowl gets, every year when halftime hits, one name always echoes louder than the rest: Michael Jackson. The way we see the Super Bowl halftime show today, that massive cinematic worldwide event, is living proof of why Michael Jackson is truly the king of pop. He didn't just perform, he changed the game forever. That's exactly why, after all these years, we still can't stop talking about him and that legendary show. Sure, other artists have delivered bigger, louder, and flashier performances. Their productions have evolved with insane technology, massive budgets, and next-level visuals. But none of that would have been possible without the vision and creativity that Michael Jackson brought first. He didn't rely on having the biggest setup in the world. He relied on an idea, and that idea changed everything. Michael was the first to treat the halftime show as a story, not just a concert, a symbolic, emotional experience that spoke to millions around the planet. He showed that entertainment could also deliver a message, one of unity, love, and connection. What he did that night was nothing less than a masterclass on how to captivate and inspire an audience. Now, of course, his show might not be everyone's favorite. Some people prefer newer artists, different genres, or more modern concepts, and that's totally fair. But one thing's for sure, Michael's performance was the moment the Super Bowl changed forever. Before him, halftime was filler. After him, it became the main event. Every performance since then has followed in his footsteps. Whether artists realize it or not, the creativity, the structure, the emotion, it all traces back to what he built that night in Pasadena. That's why, even decades later, we still look back. We still watch those moments of silence, the explosions of energy, the unity he created through music, and we know exactly why it became legendary. Because Michael didn't just make people dance, he made people feel. And that emotional connection, that power to move hearts around the world, is something no technology can ever outdo. But what about you? Do you think Michael Jackson's halftime show still stands as the best one ever? Or do you think another artist has finally managed to top it? Let's talk about it in the comments. I'm really curious to hear your take. And before you go, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Every click helps us keep bringing you more stories, more breakdowns, and more moments that shaped pop culture forever. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next video.